Hello, my name is Greg Lowry. I use he, him pronouns, and I am the data manager in professional learning for the Opportunity Project. Welcome to Tulsa Enriched. We are so excited to have you with us. We're sorry that you weren't able to join us for one of our in-person orientations, but this recording is going to walk you through what you need to know, and we'll also give you access to the links to things that I mentioned in this video so that you can get there and get those resources. One of the first things that you're going to see is a QR code for a pre-survey that I'll also share a link for later. If you can fill this out before club start, we would appreciate it. This is going to let us get a baseline and understand how we can better support you in the coming months and the coming semesters as we move forward with Tulsa Enriched. So what we're going to talk through during this orientation, I'm going to review the handbook and policies with you and give you a little bit of information on where you can find them and what you'll find in them. I'm going to talk you through how reimbursement and payment will work with this new program, what title is and what you need to know about it, and how you can access resources on how to use it, what CASEL's 3 signature practices are, and how we expect them to be utilized in programs. And then during our live orientations, we had some dedicated work time to take care of a few logistical steps. I'm going to share with you what those steps are so that you know what you need to take care of and submit after you finish watching this video. While we're not going to do this because this is an asynchronous video, we are going to talk a little bit later about warm welcomes. We always like to start any time together with warm welcomes because, as we know with youth, it's really important to be able to build community and have a formal start to a program so that we can be set for learning. So think about how you plan on welcoming your youth into your program, and we'll think about that again when we talk about CASEL's 3 signature practices later. If you're not familiar with who we are at the OP Project, we are Tulsa's intermediary for expanded learning or out-of-school time learning. That means anything that happens in the after-school space, summer, before school, even things like field trips. We help connect youth to these high-quality, engaging, and safe programs. We help develop the folks like you and like our community partners that deliver these programs, and we collect and report data about these programs to help share the impact of expanded learning on Tulsa's youth and help advocate for more funding and resources for it. If you've worked with us in the past, you may have been part of our former version of this program called TEDLS, or the Team Tulsa Expanded Learning Supplement. We've rebranded this program for a number of reasons. The first reason is that the TEDLS program was housed entirely within TPS and run by the Opportunity Project because it was funded through COVID relief dollars through ESSER funds. Those relief funds are no longer available to TPS or us, and that means that we've had to fundraise all of the money that is now being used for this program. It is no longer federally funded. That means that this money is not guaranteed beyond this year. And so when we talk about some of the constraints that we have and some of the ways that we've decided to split our budget up, we want you to know that it is only so that we can maintain the sustainability of this program. And the data and information that we ask for is going to help us advocate for more funding so that we can continue this work and expand it in the future. In this program, you as a school site professional are going to be paid hourly for your work with youth, doing high quality, engaging programming with them. So we're going to talk a little bit about what that looks like. We do have a couple funders to thank. These folks have donated money both to the Tulsa Enrich program as a whole, as well as to particular programming that they're interested in infusing into our schools. So the George Kaiser Family Foundation, the Ed Darby Foundation, Atlas School of Tulsa, and Partner Tulsa have all contributed to this program and made sure that we're able to continue paying you because as educators, we know you are not paid enough. A couple group agreements that we want to set forth. We know that you as educators are very strapped for time and have a lot on your plate. We also want to share with you that we are a team of 5, and while Tulsa Enriched is a big part of what we do, it is not all that we do. And so we are going to be managing our capacity to the best of our ability. But there are 5 of us and 122 of you, so that will change our capacity a little bit. The first thing is we want to hold ourselves and you to assuming positive intent. Our goal is to pay you for the incredible work that you do and support you in any way that we can. We also have limitations like the budget that we have had to fundraise for, and some of the things that we need to make sure that we are reporting for our funders so that we are responsibly using those funds. We also are going to assume positive intent from you because we know that you want the best for your students and that you have a lot of work on your plate as school site professionals. And so we're going to do our best to support you in whatever way that we're able to. Please also commit to a safe environment. We want our Tulsa Enrich programs to be as safe as possible for you and youth. That means that we will never ask you to do anything that puts you in an unsafe position. We also want to be transparent about the fact that as a small team that works with over 40 schools, we often do not have the opportunity to have a deep one-on-one connection with every administration and know their behavioral policies, and often can't provide in the moment support on that. So please contact your administrators and your school team for things related to behavior and loop us in as necessary, but know that we're going to have to direct you back to them for a lot of information. So please make sure you're considering who you communicate with and who's going to best be able to support you when you need things for you and you. Please also consider your tone in emails. We want to make sure that we are respecting you as professionals that do this work and are very, very hard workers. We also want to make sure that you know that we are doing our best for you as a small team, and that our goal is to work collaboratively with one another so that we can provide you the best support possible. Please also know that we are going to do our best to respond within 24 hours to all emails. But as I said, Tulsa Enriched is one part of what we do. And so we do have other obligations that will sometimes pull us away from being able to give our full-time attention to Tulsa Enriched. And we'll get back to you as soon as we can with any questions you may have for us, whether that be for me around data or for my team members, Josie and Emily, who are the point people for this program. We'll also ask that you embrace data collection. This is easy for me to say as the data manager. I know that it can sometimes be time consuming and even frustrating to collect data like attendance. But please know that the reason that we ask for it is so that we can really accurately speak to the incredible impact that you're having on youth, and so that we can advocate for more money to be able to pay you more and expand this program in the future. We ask that you stay curious and supportive, and we are going to do the same. We are going to problem solve through the challenges that we face as this program has shifted, and we've had to make some shifts as the school year has started, and we've waited on documentation and things like that. So we're going to approach things with curiosity and see how we can best support you and what kind of solutions we can create together. Um, we're going to do our very best to refrain from judgment and just ask as many questions as we can to better understand the situation and so that we can support you. And we'll ask that you reciprocate that. And last but not least, we all want to value honesty and transparency. We will share any information that we have with you as soon as we're able to, and that we have a clear answer for you. And we ask that you are transparent and honest with us about what you need, so that we can all make sure that we are solving any problems that arise. And of course, centering on the people that matter really, really a lot in this situation, the youth. We want to make sure that we're providing awesome programming for them and giving them what they need. Our handbook and policies are available on our website, which we'll link, but you can also see here is just the op.org. Under what we do, Tulsa Enriched, you'll be able to find our handbook, a full version of it that has links to a ton of helpful resources, activities and games for your program, as well as the guidelines that I'm sharing today. Our website also has a lot of other resources linked where you can find out about the other things that we do, as well as other resources you as an educator can use for your programming. And we're going to share links to Title. There's also resources for you to learn how to use that, and I'll get into those a little bit later. In your handbook, you'll find a checklist of things that you need as a program leader, what we'll be asking from you and when, a set of deadlines, the guidelines, more information about the payment structures that I'm going to share with you, and just a lot of other helpful information. So if you have a question, make sure that you're looking there first, because we've done our best to answer every question that we could think of. But if not, that handbook also has our contact information that you can use to get your questions answered. Some important guidelines that we want to share to make sure that we're very clear on things. These are things that should have been shared as you were going through the application process as well, but just to reiterate, so that we are paying you as much as we can, as appropriately as we can, with no problems. One of the most important things is that you cannot receive concurrent funding. What that means is that if you are paid by another organization for the time that you are spending with youth in this after school program, we cannot also pay you. It's an issue of double dipping, and also means that we would be unable to pay another educator that isn't receiving any funding. An example of this would be if you are paid through an organization like Bike Club or TRSA for the work that you do with youth, you can't also get paid by us to lead that club. However, if you are not getting paid by Bike Club and are helping students with a bike club, you can get paid for that. On a similar note, we cannot pay you during contract hours for your time with youth because you are being paid by the district and we can't pay you twice for the same work. So as long as your club hours are happening after your contract hours, you are set. What I will share with you in title is that there are some slight changes in the time increments that you can use. So get as close as you can on that. But what that means is that if your students get out at like 3:30, but your contract time isn't over until 4 o'clock, you cannot start your club or the hours that you get paid for your club until 4 o'clock. That is just because we can't pay you for that 30 minutes that you would be getting paid twice for the same time with youth. We know that you may have youth for that time and you can report that in title. We just will only be able to compensate you for time outside contract hours. Things that you're responsible for that we will support you in but cannot do for you are recruitment of youth and communication with families. You know best what routes will work best for that and who and when to contact. We would recommend using things like School Messenger or Peachjar if your school uses them, connecting with your admin about maybe any newsletters or regular announcements that are sent out to families. And if your site has an expanded learning liaison, site leader, coordinator, talking to them and seeing what their plan is to share information with families at large. You are also responsible for enrolling your own students and taking attendance and title for your own club. You may receive support from other folks like those liaisons and coordinators that I mentioned, but at the end of the day, you are responsible for your title attendance being updated. I'm going to share a lot of resources that you can use if you have trouble using that system or if you have not used it before. And you are responsible for scheduling and canceling any club days that you need to and communicating cancellations with families. We know that sometimes things happen, holidays come around, you're sick, there's an assembly that goes too long and you have to cancel things. Please just make sure you're communicating as soon as you can with families and canceling those days in the title system. We also will expect everyone to use Castle's 3 signature practices. If you're hearing that and thinking, I don't know what that is, how can I be expected to use this? I can guarantee that you're probably already doing them and may just not have put the same names to them. But we're also going to share very, very simple strategies you can use to incorporate them and why we care so much about them. You will be required, of course, to attend or watch this entire orientation, sign your MOU that you should have been emailed a PDF of, and a W-9, which you'll either get a copy of or you can print your own copy of a blank W-9 and fill out and sign, and get authorization from your administrators to be paid for the club. The reason for that authorization from administrators is that we need to make sure they know what clubs are happening at their school sites. In the past, we have had administrators unaware of things happening at their school, which just doesn't provide a safe environment for you. As long as you are signing that MOU and your W-9 and submitting it to us, and we will reach out to you if we don't have those things very soon, you will be eligible to get paid. You'll be compensated once for your club at the end of the semester. It is going to be through a website called bill.com via a direct deposit paycheck. So what that means is you're going to receive an email in the next week or so from bill.com to set up your account through us. You'll give it your information and your bank info where you want your check to be sent, and then it will directly deposit it as soon as we process those last payments at the end of the semester, which I'll get to in just a moment. It'll directly deposit into your bank account. We anticipate that happening right around the holidays, but before the turn of the new year, hopefully. Your reimbursement for club supplies that I'll talk about will also come through that system. You will no longer have to wait for a paper check. We cannot pay for substitute leaders. If you cannot hold club and your friend really, really wants to hold it, that's awesome. They can sub in for you, but we cannot pay them for that work because they haven't gone through this process. You are also, of course, always welcome to cancel days of club that you can't hold. In the past, you may have been familiar with supply stipends being a flat rate for everybody. We have changed that this year. Through your application, you would have applied for supplies, and on your MOU, there is a specific line for your supply reimbursable budget that we will be able to reimburse you for up to that amount. I'll talk about reimbursements in a moment, but just know that this is different, and we have done this to better accommodate the budget to make sure that people are getting what they need. Our feedback last year was that that stipend was often either not that useful because people didn't need it or was not useful because it wasn't enough to really make a dent in their supplies. And so we've adjusted that according to that feedback. A couple other guidelines for clubs that you need to know. They are eligible to start on September 30th. This is the earliest we can based on our current contract with the district, but as soon as that date comes around, you are eligible to start clubs as long as you are prepared. They will end the week of December 13th. That means that the end of club hours that we can compensate for you will end that week. If you want to hold clubs the week before the holiday break, you're more than welcome to. We just cannot compensate you for that time. We have found A, that attendance during those weeks tends to be extremely low, but also B, we want to make sure that we have enough time to calculate and turn around all of the payments to get those deposited to you before the holidays start. In terms of club times, please make sure that they're starting after your contract hours, and then they are going up to only the hours awarded in your MOU. If you want to hold club for more hours than you're being awarded in your MOU, you're more than welcome to, but once again, we can only compensate you up to that amount that's on your memorandum of understanding document that you received. Some people are still holding another day or some extra hours of club because they want to. That is totally fine with us. We would love for you to track that in title as well. But just know that we'll have to maintain that limit on compensation so that we can continue the programming next semester as well. We will require that clubs have no more than 30 youth to maintain a safe environment. If you demonstrate that you're consistently hitting that 25 to 30 youth mark, we'll talk to you about potentially having a co-leader or approving you for a second club or more hours of club in the future. This is our best way of maintaining an equitable distribution of funds for the moment. As we look towards next semester, the minimum number that we're looking at to be consistently coming to your club for us to fund it again next semester would be at least 5 students consistently attending. And some notes for before and after club. School sites are eligible to submit students for nutrition services. That is something that you'll want to talk to your admin and cafeteria manager about. We unfortunately don't influence that process. You are welcome to use part of your budget reimbursable for snacks, but just keep in mind that that will cut into the actual supplies for your program. So it may be prudent to use the snacks that are provided by the school if your students will eat them. After programs, students should be picked up by families. Some school sites do have activity buses that run, but you'll want to be communicating that with families and with your admin and what the plan is for that. Reimbursements. So supplies that you can get reimbursed for, we're going to talk about exactly what those are and are not. Any purchases that you've made since September 4th and up to December 1st are eligible. We know that some of you had already started purchasing when you knew you were approved. And so we went back and made sure that we could retroactively reimburse for some of that. The thing that we need you to do that is most important is save your receipts. We are going to send your reimbursement as a stipend at the end of the semester through bill.com via direct deposit, just like your regular payment. And we'll reimburse up to that amount on your MOU for any eligible receipts. So what do I mean by that? First, there's acceptable and non-acceptable expenses. Acceptable things would be anything that's consumable, things like art supplies or program supplies that you're going to buy, use once, and then they're done. You can use it for non-perishable snacks, but again, keep in mind that you're also eligible for nutrition services snacks, and that will cut into your other supplies. If you need licenses for a software that your students are using for a computer program as part of your activities, you can use it for that. Honorariums for speaker fees or for guests to come in, transportation fees for field trips that you organize through the district, and admission to educational sites if you're doing that. Things that would not be acceptable for reimbursement are large capital purchases without pre-approval. So these would be like devices that stay with you in the school for a while. Anything that's over $100, things like large sewing machines, 3D printers, all of that stuff. We cannot approve that. We cannot approve mileage for you to go places. We cannot approve supplies for your classroom that are not related to the students in your club. If you happen to have extras that apply to your class, that's awesome. However, you cannot buy things that are not being used for your club youth. We cannot pay for space rental. We cannot pay for hot meals except for a one-time thing like a celebration at the end of the club. If you have a question, please reach out to us. But throughout the semester, we cannot pay for hot meals consistently, again, because of nutrition services. And last but not least, any clothing or equipment that would have to stay with a youth and cannot be shared among them cannot be purchased. That would be things like shoes or things that the kids are going to keep and take with them that won't be able to be used for the club in the future. Um, Please keep all of your receipts. You're going to submit them all at once through a very simple Google form that's linked on the website. You'll tell us who you are, what your club is, and you're going to submit all of those receipts. Please make sure the receipts are dated and have items are itemized. So this would be anything the cashier hands you that's itemized. You can take a copy of that or scan or a picture of it that's very clear. If you purchase things online, your online receipt, not just a picture of your cart. We need the full receipt then showing that you have purchased it with the itemized list of what you purchased. Things like that are acceptable. If you have a question, let us know so that we can answer that ahead of time and you're not surprised that you're not eligible to submit it for reimbursement later on. All reimbursements must be submitted by December 1st. We know that is before club ends, but again, that's so that we can turn around payments in an appropriate, timely manner for you. For both of those payments, you're going to receive an email in the coming week or two from Bill.com for you to create an account. We are doing that on our end. We're submitting all of the information to our financial team, and then they will get your accounts all set up. Once you have set up your account with your information and your bank info, please ignore any other auto-generated emails from Bill.com. Unfortunately, we can't change the way that they send emails, but they will prompt you to do random things like create invoices that you do not and should not do. Once you're signed up and in the system, you no longer need to take action. We will pay you at the end of the semester without any other action needed. If you do not see that email and sign up by October 11th, please reach out to us. That's our kind of deadline for making sure that everyone is signed up so that they can be paid later on in the semester. And again, that'll be via direct deposit. Okay, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about data. Like I said, I'm not going to give you tutorials here, but I'll share where you can find them. I always like to start this section by sharing a quote that really changed my perspective when I was in college. I was doing a chemical experiment, and I came up to my professor and said, Professor, I think I got really bad data. What do I do with this? And he said, no, 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 there's no such thing as bad data, just data you didn't expect. And what I learned from that lesson was that data is never bad. It just tells you a story. And sometimes we're missing the story. Sometimes it's about how the data was collected and what we missed there. Sometimes it's about what kind of data we chose and what we're not seeing with it. And sometimes the lack of data is data in and of itself. It tells us a story. And so what I want you to know as you're collecting attendance, which is really all you're responsible for, there's no such thing as bad data. This just helps us paint a picture so that we can better support you and better advocate for funding. So our system title, Tulsa's Integrated System, Data System for Expanded Learning, is what you're going to be using. And the chart you see on the screen is a fancy way of saying that by telling me about your enrollment, your schedule, and your attendance, I am able to collect a lot of other information myself from our system and create reports on the impact of expanded learning. For example, we know that over 2,500 students were in this program last year and benefited from it. We also know that any student who did expanded learning last year in any capacity attended 2 or 3 more days of school than their peers. That's 1 to 1.5% of their school days throughout the year. And that doesn't sound like much until you consider that just 10% is the cutoff for chronic absenteeism. These important factors are only possible, these pieces of data are only available because we were able to collect a really robust sense of where students were and in what programs they were enrolled throughout the year last year. So when I'm bugging you about attendance, when you're struggling with the system, please know that it is for a really, really, really good cause and allows us to do really important things. We're also able to get demographic information. For example, one of our coordinators learned from one of the reports that we shared that while his school had a large Hmong population, because he hadn't translated his newsletter, those families didn't know what opportunities were available to them, and none of his Hmong students were accessing expanded learning expanded learning programs. That's a really important fact to be able to share and be able to provide more access to your community. So I'm going to support you in taking attendance. What does that mean you have to do? This is a slight change from last year if you were already in our program. If you've used Title before, then you're familiar with it. The change that you'll experience is that this year you are going to create your own club or group program in the system. Last year I created them. Our capacity has changed significantly, and so I'm asking you to create your club. Also so that you can change the schedule to whatever is now true, because we know that things have changed since you applied, schedules have shifted. We want you to be able to represent the schedule as accurately as possible. So if you're already familiar with how to use Title, your responsibility is to go in within the next 48 hours, create your club, and create the schedule for it so that it's ready to enroll students, and reach out to me if you need support doing that. You should have a Tulsa Enriched account. So when you log in, it should say Tulsa Enriched at the top. If you do not, please let me know and I will create one or find the correct account for you as soon as possible. When students come to club, you're going to enroll them, and then you are to take attendance within a week of club happening. Keep in mind that Title allows you to take attendance after the fact and go back and change it as necessary. So unlike Power School or your student information system, you don't have to do it in like the first 15 minutes of the program. You can collect attendance the way that makes sense for you and record it later, or you can do it directly in the system, whichever is easiest for you. I will be expecting it to be taken within a week so that we get accurate records. I'll be sending out monthly reminders, just letting you know if there are any days of your club that I don't see completed attendance records for. But wait, you need help with Title. You're new to the system, you forget how to use it, or you just never had to make your own program. What you can do is go to the opt.org/data, which I'll link after this video. And at the bottom is a link to our YouTube channel, as well as some of the key videos that you can watch. They are recorded tutorials of me just like this, going through every step of the process with Title pulled up on my screen, showing you exactly what to click, what to do, and how to do it. I've broken it down into each of the steps of the process so that nothing is more than 5 to 7 minutes, so you can watch those as necessary to refresh and get what you need. You're also going to have a link to a step-by-step guide with written instructions as well as screenshots of every step in your handbook that you can use to go through that process and create your club. And if none of that works, if you're still confused, you can always email me and I'm happy to support you. Please make sure you are getting into the system and trying it out as soon as possible so you can get support earlier rather than later. One of the other things that you'll want to know is that we do collect other data that you're not responsible for collecting, but that you'll kind of experience throughout the year. One of them you may have seen us do before is our SEO survey. This is a student survey that we use to collect students' experience of the programs and how it's impacted them. We will come into schools and on a given day around the end of October, give the survey to as many youth as we're able to reach. Your club may or may not be a part of that. We'll reach as many as we can, but we do not often have the capacity to get every single club. We'll also be doing program observations or the youth program quality assessment. This is a nationally recognized rubric that is used to assess the quality of programming. This is not punitive in any way. Although we'll share the results with you, it is not going to affect whether you get funded or not. It is just a way for you to grow in your practice and for us to speak to the quality of programming around the city of Tulsa. This will look like us coming in and sitting during a typical club time and observing, usually around the beginning of November, very similar to an observation you might see throughout the day. And then we will collect the information on that rubric and share it with you when we're able to. And we take all of that information to be able to get a really good sense of what out of school time and expanded learning does for youth in Tulsa. Some of the data that I like to share with folks just to show you why it's so important. Last year alone, over a quarter of our programs were fine arts programs, and many of those were located in schools that do not have art or music allocations, and so students miss out on that education entirely if they don't get these after-school clubs. Others were sports and movement clubs, often in elementary schools that don't have the full sanctioned district sports like some schools do. Others were STEM clubs, 11%. Considering many of our elementary students only see 25 minutes of science education a day for 2 of their 4 quarters, that's a really important gap that we're able to fill in. All of this is incredibly important, and we're doing similar work this year with, again, over a quarter of us doing fine arts programs, almost 1 in 5 programs being STEM related, and 4% of them being cultural and affinity groups to make sure that our students feel seen and heard in their schools. So thank you genuinely for what you do, and thank you for helping me collect this data to be able to tell people how important this work is. We're going to move on to Castle's 3 signature practices that I said you're probably already doing in your classrooms and in your programs. We're just going to make sure that you have a shared set of definitions for them. These are well-researched and best practices that are used across the country that are used to support youth in programs, not just in general, but in particular in environments where youth have high ACEs, like in Oklahoma. And those are adverse childhood experiences. The first is a warm welcome. This means a welcoming inclusion activity, some kind of routine or ritual you use to start program regularly to build community and connect them. This is really important because it provides consistent structure for students to look forward to, which makes them feel safe and welcomed. That could be just greeting students, it could be a whole group activity that you do, or a kind of do now or launch activity. All of these are options, and they're probably things that you already do in some way in your program, maybe like a community circle or a question of the day. Then we move on to the engaging strategies that you use throughout the program. This just means making sure that you're continuously engaging the various ways that students learn and interact. Things like different ways to group them up and work individually, in pairs, in groups, and whole class. Ways for them to represent their learning verbally, visually, and kinesthetically. Collaborative activities mixed with independent work, and even brain breaks when necessary. This makes learning more accessible for youth and allows us to expand beyond what they might typically get to do in a classroom environment where there's a lot more structure and a lot more regulation on what has to be taught. And last but not least, optimistic closures. This is often the hardest, not because it's difficult to do, but because it's difficult to plan the time for when we run up to the end of programming. I always like to set a 2-minute timer before the end of program for myself so that I can pull out a quick activity to reflect and put a bow on the experience for youth so that they can make sense of the learning that they've done and connect to future learning. These are the things that we look for when we walk in and see programs. But like I said, you are probably already doing these in a very, very intentional way. You just may not have called them these particular things. If you need ideas, your handbook has a lot of ideas of small activities that you can adapt to your program to make these things happen really quickly and easily. All right. A couple last things that you need to know that you should be doing after you finish watching this video. First of all, you're going to fill out your W-9, whether that's a blank copy that you printed or one that we blinked. I'm going to show you in just a moment what fields you need to fill out if you're unfamiliar with that. You should also be printing, signing, and submitting your Memorandum of Understanding. That is the document that explains how many weeks, how many hours per week, and what your overall budget is. And please let me know via email if you do not already have a title account or if you have moved schools and you no longer have access to the correct school. You're going to go create your club in title as soon as possible, preferably within the next 48 hours of watching this, so that I can go in, double check them, and support you if you need help. When you receive that email from bill.com in the next week or two, you're going to sign up for your account, create it, and then ignore the rest of those emails. You're going to complete the pre-survey that I'll link again and review the handbook. That pre-survey is linked in a QR code at the bottom left, or if you need it, in just a few slides. And last but not least, if you are filling out a W-9 and you're not sure what you're putting, what we need to make sure you're paid accurately is box 1 filled with your full legal name, box 3 checked as an individual because we're paying you directly, boxes 5 and 6 filled out with your address, and this box here at the bottom of the screen with your Social Security or taxpayer identification number. Ignore everything else except the signature that's 2/3 of the way down the page. Please make sure you are signing it so that we can pay you. Again, a link to the pre-survey. You can pause the video and scan that or use the link that we'll provide. And with that, please let us know if you have any questions or if there's anything that we can do to support you. Once you have gone through those links and submitted everything you need, please make sure that your club is set up in title, and we are so excited for programs to begin on September 30th. Thank you for sitting and watching this with me. And again, reach out if you have any questions.